Hi and welcome or welcome back to my channel. If you're new here, my name is Manon. I'm a programmer, horsey girl and a knitter. And if you're tuning back in, then thank you so much. You're the best. So for today, I thought we would do a pattern roundup for autumn-ish patterns. There's been quite a lot of patterns released once again in the last month, and there's older patterns as well, but I want to mainly focus on newer releases so that we can discover together what is new on Ravelry basically. So I've selected quite a few sweaters, cardigans, vests, but also a few t-shirts that I think they're not particularly summery t-shirts. So you will see, I'm sure you will enjoy that. All of that is going to be in a Ravelry bundle that I will link down below in the comments. And there's also some extra patterns because I've selected 17 that I want to talk about. There's a few extra in there. There's even a crochet pattern that I didn't feel I necessarily had to mention, but that were nice. So I thought, well, let's include that. So if you're still hungry after going through 17 patterns with me, then check out the Ravelry bundle for some extra goodies. Okay, let's dive in. I've got my notes slightly on the side, so I'm not going to be looking straight into the camera for all of the video. Excuse me. But yeah, let's start with sweaters because it's autumn. So what I've looked at is pieces that I would want to wear as sort of outerwear. I mean, not if it's raining, of course, because then you will need a rain jacket, but sweaters that will be warm enough to be worn outside when the temperatures start to drop, but that won't be worn under a coat all the time. So they are still quite ornate. It's going to be quite a lot happening in motifs or in pattern texture. This is going to be like the running theme of all of the patterns we're going to talk about today. So yeah, let's start with sweaters. And the first one is the 108 sweater by Bana Knit. It really reminded me of it's the Dagmar sweater by Petite Knit because of the honeycomb in front. I mean, it's not something that Petite Knit invented or anything, but that's the first thing that came to mind. However, it is different in a few ways. So let me get my notes in front of me and then I can tell you about it. There is that. There's also some elements from the Moby sweater in there that I really like. I've knitted that and it's great. But both the Dagmar and the Moby are knitted on bigger needles with a thicker yarn. This one is a different construction, different yarn weight, but the same sort of look, but it's going to be more flowy because it's knit at a different gauge. So before I tell you all about that, let's first get the few details into. So it was released in August 2025. It only has 15 projects on Ravelry. However, this is a pattern that's very popular in Korea at the moment. And apparently Koreans are not on Ravelry very much. So if you look on Instagram, there's a lot of people that have tagged this one with the tag for this sweater. A lot more than there are projects on Ravelry. So definitely look those up for inspiration if you want to. This pattern costs €8.72. I will put all the prices, probably on this side, up in dollars as well, so that you have both euros and dollars. And yeah, I'm not going to translate it to other currencies, just because that's too much work. I'm sorry. There's 17 patterns, guys. It's a lot. Anyway, it's knit on 3.25 millimeters needles, so that's, it says US 3, is that correct? Yeah, that is correct. And the gauge is 28 stitches in moss stitch. So that's purl, knit, purl, knit, purl, knit. And a suggested yarn is quite a premium yarn. So it's Yak, the baby yak lace, and it's held double. So if you look at the yardage for this, it's quite high because the yarn has to be held double. But you could knit this in any fingering merino held double, or a merino and a mohair if you wanted a more fluffy effect. You could choose a very light fingering weight yarn that is a blend of wool with something else that's a bit more fluffy, so either with a bit of mohair in there, or with some alpaca maybe, or with cashmere. Lots of options. But yeah, it's the samples I have seen online, not in real life, unfortunately, in the suggested yarn look really, really nice, and it will give you a really soft sweater with quite a nice drape. So maybe something to splurge on. It has 5 different sizes. It's supposed to be worn with at least 10 centimeters of positive ease, but I think the sample in the photos is worn with a bit more than that. So maybe not a great size range. The garment bust circumference ranges between 100 and 130 centimeters, but I think you could stretch that a little bit. Yeah, if you would be okay with a little bit less positive ease. Anyway, the pattern comes in English and in Korean, and then the construction is quite interesting. It's saddle shoulders, which I think is great for a cabled sweater like this, because it's going to hold its shape a lot better than just pull on the shoulders and pull those cables out of shape. So I really like the idea of this.
I messed up my explanation of the construction, so here we go again. You knit 2 little shoulder pieces, then you pick up stitches along one side, cast on stitches for the back of the neck, pick up stitches on the other side of the shoulder, and then knit the back with German short rows for shaping, and then you basically do the same for the front until you reach the underarm. Then you can join it around, knit until the hem, and then pick up for the sleeves and then the neckband.
I almost bought yarn for this one, and then I stopped myself because I'm trying to keep the list of things I want to do, and so the yarn stash sort of in control. So yeah, very high on what I'd like to knit. Don't think I'll be able to knit it this autumn, and that goes for quite a lot of the patterns in this list, unfortunately, but they all look really great. Anyway, moving to the next one. Let me get it here. So this is the Giardino sweater by Isabel Kremer. It was released in July of this year, 2025. It has 92 projects on Ravelry. It's a popular one. It would cost you €6.90. It's knitted on 3.25mm needles or US 3. Mostly, I mean, for the cuff, there's different needles, but this is the main needle, and the gauge is 24 stitches in stockinette. Why I love this one, I mean, look at the color work. I mean, okay, it always depends what the sample is knitted in, and you might really like a pattern because you really connected with what the sample looks like. But yeah, that's part of it. But I think it looks great. It's got a really beautiful motif. There's lots of other people that have knitted this one. Obviously, there's lots of other examples of colors, and it's absolutely wonderful. I think it's really amazing. The yarn for this one is once again kind of a premium one. It's another Emyak yarn, but this is Fiordilino, which is 50% Tibetan cloud wool. I'm not sure what that is, but some type of wool. 35% baby yak, which is going to make it very soft, and 15% Italian linen, which is really interesting. I've not really seen that combination before of very warm, soft wool with linen. The designer seems to love it. She's knitted quite a few samples in this one. But I had a really hard time finding a substitute for this yarn, because it's a very popular yarn, but their production rate is quite low. So if you order now, you're only going to get your yarn in like a month or two for certain colorways, not for all of them. So if you do want to get this one, go visit their website, or there's a few shops that carry it outside of the website, but it's quite hard to get your hands on some of these colorways. And that was my dog barking. I'm sorry. So that's why I really wanted to find some alternatives. And you would think that any sport / DK weight would work for this yarn, but this is color work, so you have to be a little bit careful. And maybe it's the linen that makes it color work, like have really defined stitches. I'm not 100% sure. So what did I come up with? Yeah, that lots of wool with a bit of cashmere or alpaca in it, or pairing it with the mohair, but then you're going to lose the definition of the color work. So a cheap option would be Drops Flora, which is very simple. I think it's mostly wool and then it has some alpaca, so to have a little bit of that softness and warmth. I mean, this is a sweater, it's supposed to be a little bit warm. And then another interesting option, but getting a lot more expensive straight away, is La Mana Como Cashmere, which is 70% merino and 30% cashmere. So there's a lot of yarns that have 10% cashmere in them. They are very nice and soft. 10% would already make it quite soft. So 30% sounds like, oh, that's going to be a really nice and soft one. The dog has joined. And I had one more option that came close to the option. Great, Archie. Yeah, you're a very good distracting dog. But another option that came a bit closer to the original yarn, and it's the Rerum Natura Alice, because it has 75% merino and 25% linen in it. So, and that could be, I think that is not quite, you are a proper gremlin, you. That yarn is not quite the right weight, so you would have to pair it with a merino. But there are merinos that have less mohair in it and a bit more silk, so they're less fluffy. And not every mohair is the same, of course, but I think it's La Mana yarn has a less fluffy mohair. So that could be an option. But I mean, we're going into like luxurious options straight away. So I could understand if that's not what you would want. Then for sizes for this pattern, there are 9, and they will range between an 89 centimeters to 157.5 centimeter bust circumference of the finished garment. And the finished garment is supposed to have about 10 centimeters of positive ease. It comes in English, Danish, French, German, Italian, and Spanish. So construction-wise, this is seamless, top down. I mean, it's a round yoke, and you will have to add a little bit more, a little bit of shaping at the back. So that's where you start, but otherwise, nothing out of the ordinary. Archie, I'm not sure you're a very good knitting prop here, but okay. The next pattern that I want to talk to you about is the two-way pullover My Size. Apparently there's another two-way pullover, so I'm not sure why it's called My Size as well. But anyway, this is the one I want to talk to you about. This is designed by Min Young Han, and I hope I didn't butcher that name. It's really, it looks like a very simple piece. So it's not as richly ornate as some of the other designs in this bundle, but it's got some really nice details. So it's also a saddle shoulder construction, and it is that because then it can have a cable running over the shoulder all the way down into the sleeve. And then, of course, when you do saddle shoulder construction, at some point it turns into a raglan for the last part. And so for that, at the back, you have a cable as well that runs on the back and then down the raglan and then down the side of this sweater. So it looks very simple, but I think it's a smart construction that will avoid the fabric to be pulling on the shoulders and combining it with a really beautiful, elegant design. This was published in August 2025. It only has 3 projects on Ravelry. However, once again, Korean pattern, so it could be that there's a lot more people knitting this, but they're not on Ravelry. It would cost you $8.72. It is knitted on 4mm needles. That's US 6. The gauge is 19 stitches in stockinette. So whenever I talk about gauge, it's for 10 centimeters or 4 inches, by the way. So this is quite a nice gauge. It should be relatively fast. And then the suggested yarn is a yarn I have never heard about, but it's Nakyang yarn. I'm Wool 2. It looks really nice in the pictures. And what I would choose if I could not get my hands on this yarn would be something that is either 100% cashmere or a cashmere blend, or maybe baby yak, to have something very, very soft, because it looks like a piece that needs to be very soft, that is just going to be very comfortable, very relaxing, really beautiful and very elegant. So you want a very high quality material, I think, for this. It comes in 8 sizes, and the bust circumference of the finished garment ranges between 95 centimeters and 145.5 centimeters, and it's intended to have between 10 to 20 centimeters of positive ease. It comes in English and in Korean, and as I said, it's a really interesting construction, I think. There's lots of simple sweaters around, of course, but this one is not just simple. It's a little bit more than that. Next one, we have the Skye Sweater, and we're back in like full pattern, or should I say, it's not motif necessarily, but lots of stitch patterns all across the sweater. So you could almost say, oh, but this is maybe a little bit more winter-like. But no, this pattern has little eyelet rows here and there in the pattern. So there's a little bit of ventilation if it's getting a little bit warm. So that's lovely. And another reason why I love this pattern is the placement of the different stitch patterns that are used. So it has around the waist, it has those, I think it's 2x2 columns. It could be 3x3, I'm not 100% sure. Oh, hi Archie, back awake. But that will have like a slimming effect for around your waist, and I think it's very thoughtful of the designer. And you could switch those around, of course, if you didn't want that effect there, if you wanted it somewhere else on the sweater. But yeah, I think it's smart and it's beautiful. It's once again one of those sweaters with lots of beautiful stitches all over it. So if you're into that like me, then this is perfect. It was released last month, once again in August 2025. It has 18 projects on Ravelry. It would cost you $7.09, and the body is, thanks Arch, is knitted on 3.5mm needles, or there's a US 4. The gauge is 18 stitches in raindrop rip stitch for 10 centimeters or 4 inches. And the yarn that was used for the sample is West Yorkshire Spinners BFL, so Blueface Leicester DK. There's lots of other yarns you could use for this. It's a pretty standard gauge, so Knitting for Live Heavy Merino, or Sandnes Garn Sunday if you want a softer version, or Peer Gynt from Sandnes Garn once again if you want a more sturdy, rustic yarn. And if you want a slightly cheaper option, I know that Hobby Friends Wool is it is pretty much at that gauge, if I'm not mistaken. So yeah, you could do lots of things for this one. It has a pretty good size range as well. It has 10 different sizes for a finished bust circumference between 91 centimeters and 183 centimeters. And it's supposed to be worn with at least 10 centimeters of positive ease. It comes in English, and the construction is very simple. It's top down, drop shoulder. The one thing I could not find in this pattern is whether it looks like it has shaping because the back is much higher than the front, but it doesn't say if that is done with increases or with German short rows or something else. So I don't know about that, but it does look like it's shaped. So that's good. The next and last sweater for today is the Divino Pullover by Claudia Quintela for Knit Toronto. And it's a really beautiful, big, oversized texture piece. And before I looked into what yarn is used for this, I thought it was just standard, like a merino pad with a mohair or something like that, or maybe a blown yarn. But it's not. It is, I think, 2 strands of soft silk mohair by Knitting for Olive, and it's knitted on bigger needles, and so it's probably going to be quite airy and quite light, which from the pattern photos I did not really get. But so it's going to be a very big piece, but instead of being very big and heavy, it's going to be very big and very light. So that's fantastic. It was released in August 2025. It only has 10 projects on Ravelry. It would cost you $9.81. It's knitted on 4mm needles, that's US 6, and the gauge is 21 stitches. I could not find for sure that that was in the texture pattern, but I'm assuming it is. So the sample is knitted in Knitting for Olive, soft silk mohair, but honestly any soft silk mohair will probably do. Or if you want an even fluffier, thicker, warmer version, you could substitute one of the 2 for brushed alpaca, maybe. You'd have to check with your swatch if that's going to work. I don't think 2 strands of alpaca would work. I think that's going to be too much, but maybe 1 mohair, 1 alpaca. Who knows? There's 8 sizes, so ranging between 100 and 170 centimeters for finished garment bust circumference, and it's supposed to have 20 to 25 centimeters of positive ease, so that is quite a lot. But you can see that in the pictures. It's a very big, roomy, nice. It comes in English, and the construction is a top-down raglan, and it does have shaping, but to keep the textured pattern intact, it has a shaping in the neckband, which is done with ribbing. And then there's 2 options for the neckband as well. You can do a simple neckband or you can do a folded neckband, and there's explanation for both of those in the pattern in order to do those with German short rows. So my only small tiny little concern would be with this one is the shaping. Is the color deep enough that it's not going to choke you, and that the shaping is going to have enough effect? It can be done. I mean, I did that with my ridiculously big Yeti sweater. I just did the shaping in the collar, and it works, but that is a ridiculously big neckline. So yeah, that is something to maybe, if you're going to knit this, double check once you've done the collar, try it on, and no, not the collar. Once you've done the yoke, try it on, or maybe do the collar quite soon after, before you knit the entire garment, just to be sure. And one other thing that I could not, oh no, it does. I was going to say that I couldn't find the amount of yarn needed for this pattern, but I'm wrong. It says it right down the Ravelry page, so that's perfect. Then, so that's it for the sweaters, but I've got a few honourable mentions of things that I would have wanted to, that were on my list to mention in this episode. I hope you can't hear my dog breathing very heavily. Yeah, I'm talking about you. Heavy breather. You're adorable. Don't worry. Go back to sleep. Anyway, a couple honourable mentions that I would have liked to include in this episode, but that I can't because they're either in testing or not even, no, I think they're all in testing at the moment. So something to keep an eye on. I will probably include them in some sort of pattern roundup when they come out. But if you want to be one of the first ones to get the pattern when it comes out, because usually they have a discount code or something when the pattern is first released, then look out for the Paris sweater, the seamless version by Giardino Cardigan. It's all over lace. I think it has a few cables. It doesn't have a lot of positive ease, but I thought that was a very nice change from all the oversized sweaters that you see everywhere. So yeah, that looks to be very nice. It has slight balloon sleeves. I'm not sure that's entirely my thing, but yeah, the designer is really good with lace, so I would fully trust her to create something absolutely beautiful. So I think that is supposed to come out in November. It's the test knit starts this week, and it's going to run for 2 months, and then it's going to be released in November. And then the other one is the Hardanger sweater by Unwind Knitwear, so that's Rachel Ilsley, and it's a beautiful color work pullover. So I think it's, but I'm not 100% sure. I think it's a round yoke construction, but Hardanger is the type of embroidery, I think it's Norwegian, where you embroider with a white thread on white fabric, and it's inspired from that. So of course you're not going to do color work with two white yarns, because why are you doing color work then? But it made me think, if you had like a hand dyed very light yarn to pair it with white, so you would just about see it, but really to do its name honor, I think that could be really beautiful. Or have something a little bit with a little bit of sheen in it. Or anyway, the concept is very interesting. Thanks, Archie. He's looking out of the window now. There's something very interesting over there, apparently. I have no idea what it is. All I see is tomato plants and rain. Anyway, that's the two sweaters that get honourable mentions, but that have not been released yet. And then there's 3 others that I'm going to cast on, but I've talked about them quite a lot in previous episodes, so I'm not going to talk about them again. But that is the Low Tide by Rachel Ilsley once again. Lots of lace, quite a lot of cables, just beautiful. The Orchid Bloom Pullover by Sari Nordland. I'm going to knit that in hand-dyed yarn, and I can't wait to cast it on because it's going to be really, really beautiful. And then the Esther Sweater by Petite Knit, because I want something that is on slightly bigger yarn and bigger needles, so it knits up a bit faster than all the other fingering weight projects that I'm currently doing and that are on the list. So yeah, that's it for the honourable mentions. We are going to move to t-shirts. And the first one is called Bouquet by Knitting for Breakfast, and I think it's 2 sisters that run that account. And yeah, it looks, at first glance, you think, oh, it's just a color work pullover, but then with short sleeves. I mean, how is this different from all the other ones? Archie, you can't be making noises if I'm talking, because that is just not going to work. Yeah, it might be the postman, but too bad. You will survive. So yeah, it looks really simple, and why would I need to mention yet another color work sweater? However, there is lace in the yoke, and that is why I think this would be like the perfect transitional piece going into autumn, having both lace and color work, and you can really tailor the colors to fit with the season. I think it's a really great idea what they've done here. So yeah, really big fan, and I'm a big fan of those colors as well that they've used as an sample, but trying to look past that. But this was released late August 2025, so it's quite new. It already has 19 projects on Ravelry though. It's not very expensive. It's only €4.14. It is knitted on 3.5mm needles. That is US4. It has a gauge of 25 stitches in stockinette stitch, and suggested yarn is a yarn I don't know. It's Fiber Gentili Eoli. Yeah, Yes, it is the postman. But he knows to drop the packages in the plants next to the door. That works, and I'll get them out of there. Anyway, so a yarn I don't know, but any sport weight wool that is not superwash is going to work for this. Maybe something with a little bit of blend, maybe with a little bit of alpaca if you want it to be warmer, to be able to wear it in winter, or if you are going to do the long sleeve version, because of course that's an option. Yeah, I mean, there's lots of possibilities here. It has 11 sizes, so the finished garment bust circumference will go between 80 centimeters and 177 centimeters, and it's supposed to have positive ease of between 8 to 18 centimeters. It comes in English, in French, in German, in Italian, and in Spanish. And it has, I mean, it's a round yoke, top-down construction, so it's fairly Archie. Please, no noises. Yes, that was the postman driving away. But yeah, nothing very special to say about the construction. As with lots of color work, yoke, sweaters, it's top-down, it's circular yoke. I can't remember, let me quickly check if there is, I'm guessing there must be some shaping. But I don't see that mentioned on the Ravelry page, or I'm like completely glossing over it. So I'm not sure if they're in there or not. I'm sorry. Next, t-shirt that can obviously also be knitted with long sleeves, and there is actually also the yardage provided if you are knitting it with long sleeves. It is the not to be missed by Unwind Knitwear. I mean, it's one of my favorite designers, can you tell already? And this is on my to-do list. I have the yarn to do this one because it's beautiful. It's got all these little motifs in bands on it. It's inspired by macrame, so that's why there's so many little eyelets and openings, but there's so many different patterns in this. So yeah, I just want to try all of these and then have a beautiful piece at the end of that. And what I also like, so she knitted this one up in, I think it's an alpaca and silk blend, and it's what I have as well. Well, mine has 10% mohair in it. Not mohair, what am I saying? Cashmere in it as well. So it's got lots of holes. So you could think, why are you thinking about this for autumn? But if you knit it in a warm yarn, then it's not as bad that it has lots of holes in. So that's the plan. This one was released in August 2025. It has 39 projects on Ravelry. It would be £6.54. I always forget if it's cents or pence or however you call that, but you know what I mean. It's knitted on 4mm needles. That is a US 6. It has a gauge of 21 stitches in a lace pattern that is provided in the pattern, what you should gauge swatch in. And so the sample is knitted in Irish artisan yarn, baby alpaca silk. So I think it's a hand-dyed indie dyer's yarn, but I mean, look at the color. It's really beautiful. It reminds me a little bit of marble, like the kind of natural marble you would find in Greece or in Italy. That is not super white, but it's got something magical about it. It's got a warm tone to it, and that's what this reminds me of. So my suggested yarn would be what I'm going to use, which is a tôt le matin yarn. Wait, I've got a wound up ball of it here. In fact, this is it. I don't know if it's going to focus. Yeah, so this is 70% alpaca, 20% silk, and 10% cashmere, and it's the softest thing you will ever touch. That is why I want to knit something in this. It's just so I can wear something super soft, I can work with something super, super soft to the touch. So it's going to be an absolute pleasure to knit with this. This is a light fingering weight, but because you knit it on bigger needles, it's fine. I was, in fact, a bit surprised when I looked at the weight that she used in the sample. I didn't think that I would be able to use this yarn for this at first, and then I looked at what yarn it is and what the weight of it is and length, etc. And it's exactly this, which is 400 meters for 100 grams. And the way this works is that, so construction wise, why this works is the back, before you start the lace pattern, is knitted up on smaller needles so that it holds up the structure where all of your garment is going to pull is quite a bit tighter. And then when you start to do the lace pattern, then you move to the 4mm needle, and that is how this works. And I think it has German short rows in the back and in the front to do the neck shaping. But I'm getting ahead of myself, because no, I'm not. I don't really have any other yarns that I would really suggest for this. I think a hand-dyed yarn for this would really work, but then look for your favorite hand dyer close to you or where you like to order and find a beautiful colorway that is going to work for this. It comes in 9 sizes, so a really nice size range. Archie, if you fall off my lap, it's not going to work. Weirdo. I'm not sure that filming with a dog on my lap is a great idea. And I hope he's not going to breathe into the mic all the time, because then I will have to re-record this. Hey, little demon. Oh, you're a big baby. You are a big baby. Yes. Anyway, size-wise, yes. So 9 sizes, and it will range between 87.5 centimeters to 164 centimeters for bust circumference of the finished garment, which is supposed to have at least 10 centimeters of positive ease. You can do more if you want to, but not less than that. It comes in English, and I think I've talked you through the construction already. And then, yeah, so it has pictures of a sample. Archie, that is way too loud. I don't think people are tuning into this video so that they can hear you snore. This is interesting. Anyway, the pattern has they did samples in long sleeves, short sleeves, and it has the yardage for that. I don't know if the sleeves are then more tapered or not, but Rachel's patterns are very extensive. So if that is the case, it will be explained, I guess. Okay, Arch. You're a really big baby, but I need to scroll to my notes. So how are we going to do this? I have an unhappy dog now. But the next one is a t-shirt. Well, I think it's a t-shirt, but it's almost 3/4 sleeves. But it's called Fougère. I don't think it's a French designer, but Fougère in French means fern. And if you look closely at the pattern, you will see lots of little leaves. So I do get where she gets the name from. But anyway, the designer is Knits by Giselle, so that's Giselle Cardi that is behind that name. And she knit this in, I think it's 100%, it's Drops Puna, which I think is 100% alpaca. So once again, lots of lace, but if you knit it in a warm yarn, then you should be okay. I mean, if it gets very windy, then of course you will be a bit cold. But other than that, this looks lovely. It's not too late for lace, is it? It was released in August 2025. It only has one project on Ravelry. It would cost you $9.27. It is knit up on 4mm needles or US 6, and the gauge is 24 stitches in the lace pattern. For other yarn suggestions. So other than drops Puna, which I think is, why not? It's a good idea, but I think this could also work in a single strand of merino, or you could do a merino blend that has some alpaca in it. I think it's not a bad idea to go for something a little bit warmer if you're knitting this for the upcoming season. Then you want a bit more warmth. And we're back. Okay, and it comes in 9 sizes. I think it's a finished garment bust circumference that would range between 91.5 centimeters and 175.5 centimeters, and it's supposed to have between 15 to 25 centimeters of positive ease. It comes in English, and construction-wise, it's knitted top-down, drop-shoulder construction. It does have German short row shaping in the back. And for the sleeves, you can choose. You either knit them straight, or you can do a bit of German short rows at the cap of the sleeve to shape them if you would like to. And both options are in the pattern. So that was the last t-shirt for today. And then I've got quite a lot of vests because I think, well, yeah, I like vests, slipovers. I'm currently knitting one, but I found one that is actually better that I wish I found before I started this one, but we'll get to that. First, we're going to talk about the Charlie Gilet by Knitting for Breakfast once again. So that's, I think, the two sisters. And if I'm wrong, then I've said it wrong twice now. But anyway, Knitting for Breakfast for this pattern. It's not a super new pattern, but when I saw it, I was like, this is really lovely. It was published in May 2023. It only has 4 projects on Ravelry. I mean, what happened there? It would cost you €4.91. It's knitted up on 4mm needles, so US 6, with a gauge of 22. With a gauge of 22 stitches in pattern, and the pattern is sort of like these. It's just purls and knits, so it's not complicated, but they go in sort of like a V shape, and I think that is a really nice. It makes it look. It shapes how you see your body underneath it a little bit. Thanks, Archie. Let's move even more. You're like an impossible child. There we go. I don't think I'm going to film with a dog again, but now that he's here, I would feel bad putting him down. I mean, on the ground, to be clear. So yeah, the pattern really makes this special for me. It's very simple, but just special enough. And I like that it's just knits and purls, so you don't have to do anything difficult. You just have to keep track of where you are, where you need to do a knit or a purl. But I think once you get used to the pattern, it should be fairly easy. And they knit the sample in Cardiff Cashmere Classic, so that's quite a premium yarn. However, this doesn't have sleeves, so you're not going to you're not going to need too much yarn. So yeah, if you want to splurge a little bit but not too much, then this could be nice. If you want a more budget-friendly option, then Drops Flora would work really nice, or Puna. So Flora is 65% wool and 35% alpaca, I think, but that's top of my head. I could be wrong. Puna is, I think, 100% alpaca, but a little bit bigger, or alpaca. So Drops alpaca, which is a bit thinner, but then you could pair it with a mohair, for example. Or if you want to go for a more premium version, and you don't want to go with Cardiff Cashmere, there's La Mana Roma, which is 80% cashmere and 20% silk, so it's going to have a little bit more drape, and La Mana Cusco, which is 100% baby alpaca, if you want something very warm. Size-wise, it has 10 different sizes, so that's a really good size range. It will fit, or the garment will have a finished bust circumference of 87 centimeters to 181 centimeters, and it's supposed to have positive ease between 10 to 20 centimeters. It comes in English and in Italian, and the construction is bottom up in the round, and then once you split for sleeves, of course, you have to continue flat. And then the shoulders, I think it's Kitchener stitch to stitch them together. And once those are done, then you pick up the neck edge and the shoulders as well. So those are done both in the round. So neck edge and the shoulders. I think the neck edge is a rib, and I'm not 100% sure about the shoulders. But yeah, so there's a little bit of finishing to do there. Yeah, I think it's a lovely pattern, and if you want something light, definitely go for the cashmere. If you want something a little bit heavier, warmer, go for wool or maybe alpaca if you want the warmest option. Next up is the Leander Cardi Vest by Anna Wenzel, and this just looks like one of those really cozy vests, cardigan, like sleeveless cardigans that you would want to put on in autumn if it's still a little bit warm but not too warm, so you just want something to keep your body warm. This pattern comes in several different sizes, and it also has the yardage included for the different sizes, so a very short version and in between, and a long version. And I think the motif is really lovely. If this was just simple stockinette, there would be nothing interesting about this, but the motif makes it really nice. This was published in April 2025. It has 42 projects on Ravelry. It would cost you 60 Danish kroner. That's about €8.38. It is knitted on 5mm needles. That is a US 8 and with a gauge of 17 stitches in the pattern. So I think it's more cables, but I'm not 100% sure. So yeah, this should knit up quite fast. Archie, why do you have to keep on moving all the time? Anyway, the yarn used in the samples is Easiger Soft and Easiger Bouquet. Easiger Soft, have heard about it, have seen it, never used it. Easiger Bouquet, didn't even know it existed. But I feel, let me double check, but yeah, Easiger Soft is mostly alpaca, a bit of cotton, and then the Bouquet is 100% alpaca. So yeah, this would be very, very warm. So other ideas that would work with this is something like, I would do something a bit more rustic, so use a wool like Peer Gynt from Southern Scarn or Hobby Friends wool that I've used quite a lot as well, and then maybe pair it with a brushed alpaca to give it that really thick texture, so that there's no wind coming through this, basically. I think that could look quite nice. Archie, do you mind? How about, what is it? Is it a bird? Okay. You are gonna have to go somewhere else. Yeah, go bark at it downstairs. Okay, no more dog because he misbehaved. I think what I've not told you about this pattern yet is the size range. There's 6 different sizes. The finished garment bust circumference will range between 104 and 145 centimeters, which is not a huge size range for 6 sizes. But the positive ease that it can have is quite a big range. It's between 21 centimeters and 39 centimeters. And so she's done that depending on the length of it, but you can choose what you would like this to look like, of course. This pattern comes in English, in Danish, in French, in German, in Italian, in Norwegian, and in Swedish. And it's a very simple, seamless top-down construction. Why does it have to be so barky today? And then on to the next one, which is the pattern I wish I had found before I started knitting on my Amy Slipover, which is great, and it's slowly moving forward. However, this one has a few details that I thought of doing on my Amy Slipover and then ended up not doing it because I couldn't be bothered figuring out how I would do those, so I went with what the pattern recommended. But before I get ahead of myself, this is a side bow slipover. It is designed by Sarah Antipenkov. Okay, Sarah Antipenkov. And yeah, it's a better version of the Amy slipover, if you ask me. It has shoulder shaping. It doesn't have 2x2 rib, so you don't need to do some weird bind offs. And it has double knit ties. So it's just really beautiful. The dog is back. Have you finished barking? Do you want to come back in? You're going to think about it. Okay, well, you think about it over there. Now you want to push in. I mean, I thought cats could not make up their minds. Dogs are worse. Come on then. You're enjoying this, aren't you? Come on. Oh yeah, stretch first. Yeah, stretch first. Take your time. Thank you. Thanks for coming in and joining. Yeah, going in your bed is the right choice. Yeah, or on the sofa bed. There we go. Yeah, go and lie on my yarn. That's why it's there, so it can absorb all the dog hairs. Anyway, where on earth was I? The side bow slipover. I think I've told you what I like about it, but let's continue with the details. It was released in March 2025. It has 48 projects on Ravelry. It would cost you $10.36. It's knitted on 4.5mm needles. That's a US 7, and the gauge is 20 stitches in stockinette. So that would be quite nice. This would probably knit up a lot faster than the Amy slipover, which has a gauge, top of my head, 28 stitches. So I'm doing that one in knitting for olive merino with soft silk mohair, and obviously that takes longer. But suggested yarn for this pattern is the Cascade Yarn 220. That's a superwash yarn, or knitting for olive heavy merino. There's samples in both these yarns. And my only suggestion or possible yarn substitution would be that you could also go down one yarn weight and then add mohair if you wanted a bit of fluff, which is something I do like in how my Amy slipover is looking. That it's a bit fluffy. I mean, it's for the colder season, so why not? Yeah, so that would be the one thing I might do for this one. It has 9 different sizes. It would range between 80 and 160 centimeters for the finished bust circumference of the garment, and it's supposed to have approximately 10 centimeters of positive ease. It comes in English, and the construction is top down, where you start with the back and you do the entire back. This is knitted flat, obviously. Then you pick up stitches in the front to do the 2 front pieces. You join them in the front, and then you knit until the hem. And then for the bands, they are double knitted, as I said before. So you first start knitting the band, and then when you have enough to do one side of the tie, you pick up and knit along the edge of the armhole, and once you've got to the other side, then you stop attaching it to the garment basically, and you continue the tie just in normal double knitting, and you do that for both sides. And then I think the color is in rib. Let me double check. Yeah, it's picked up and knit. And 2 things to know about this one. Until the end of September, there's 30% off of this pattern on Ravelry. You don't need a code or anything. It will be discounted in your cart. And she is still looking for testers for sizes 7, 8, and 9. So if you're interested in test knitting this, she will send you the pattern for free, and all you have to do is knit it and provide your feedback and maybe some pictures. I'm not sure about that. So those sizes would range would be for people that have a bust circumference of 130 centimeters for size 7, 140 for size 8, and 150 for size 9. So if that's you and you really want to do this pattern, then there you go. That's a free pattern that you could get. Next, and no, it's not the last vest just yet. Almost second to last, if I'm not mistaken. Yes. This one is a bit festive, almost. It's a bit early to do that, but why not? I thought it was lovely, and slipovers are not really something I want to talk about in December. So let's talk about it now. This is Rimfrost, and it's designed by Kari Rasmussen for Filcolana. It's a free pattern, guys. That's lovely. And it's a beautiful lace slipover, and it has ties. So this is the kind of things I really like at the moment. It's knitted up. One of the yarns used is this metallic thread, and that gives it a bit of a sheen. And that is what makes at least a sample quite festive. If you don't use that, then it's just going to be a lace slipover. So basically a very light slipover that you can easily wear under a jacket as well. So I think this is a really beautiful piece. It was published in August 2025. It only has one project on Ravelry. It is knitted up on 3.5mm needles, that's a US 4, and it has a gauge of 28 stitches in the lace pattern. The suggested yarn, I mean, this was created for Filcolana, so obviously this is all Filcolana yarn, but it's 2 strands of Filcolana Tilia, which is their silk mohair, and then 1 strand of Paya, which is 67% rayon and 33% metal or metallic thread. And that is what gives it the sheen. So you could substitute that second Paya thread for something with lurex as well, which is a bit shiny, or with something with paillettes. Who knows, if you really want to go for a lot more sheen. Or, I mean, just knit it in 3 strands of mohair. And what would probably also work is just in a fingering weight yarn and or with mohair, depending on how light your fingering is and how thick or thin your mohair is. But yeah, lots of options. Looks beautiful. It only comes in 5 sizes, so it's not a very big size range, unfortunately. It will fit busts between 72 centimeters and 114. It doesn't say anything about the positive ease because it has ties on the side, so you can choose how much positive ease you will want. But yeah, if you're on the edge about this, you can always download it. It's free, and then see if the measurements that they give for your size would work, yes or no. It comes in a lot of languages. It comes in English, in Dutch, in Danish, in Finnish, in French, in German, in Norwegian, and in Swedish. And it's knitted bottom up for both sides, both the front and the back. And it's joined at the shoulder. Then the neck edge is picked up. It doesn't have any finishing on the armholes or the sides. I can do this. And then it has I-cord ties, and so there's just a few stitches that you pick up just under the arm, and then you knit an I-cord from there. So it sounds fairly simple. If you want to try your hand at lace and you don't want to, no, I was going to say if you don't want to do the back, but yeah, it's knitted flat, so you have to do front, like wrong side and right side. Yeah, maybe not that beginner friendly then, maybe. But I mean, also, if you're an adventurous beginner, I'm sure this will be fine. And it looks like a very simple piece that could work with lots of other clothing pieces as well. Okay, now the actual last vest, and I think this was released today or yesterday. I'm filming this on Tuesday, 2nd of September. But this is the Codger Vest by Ellen Furtherer. And well, it's a vest, but it's buttoned in the front, so you could also say it's a sleeveless cardigan. Make of it what you want. And I love that it has cables, it has texture. It would basically be my perfect cardigan, but I mean, I've not done the sleeves yet. And it has beautiful finishings as well. I love to wear body warmers in the winter, both while I'm working to keep myself warm, but I don't need all the warmth on my arms all the time. And for sports, for going to the stables and riding or mucking out stables or you name it, but keeping my core warm is very nice without having my armpits getting very sweaty. So yeah, that's maybe why I like slipovers and vests that much. But yeah, so this is a great option. It's one that, once again, I would really want to cast on, but I'm really stopping myself to do it. It doesn't have, when I made my notes earlier today, it had 0 projects. It already has 1 project on Ravelry now. So someone was very, very quick. And by the time this is live, there might be more, of course. It's a free pattern. So that is absolutely lovely. It's knitted up on 5mm needles. That's in US 8. The gauge is 14 stitches in moss stitch. So this will knit up so fast. My camera froze. But yeah, I was just saying that this will knit up very fast. And that is, once again, why it's very tempting, because this would be ready in like a couple of weeks, probably. It would actually be quite a nice gift knit. This is going to be relatively fast, and it's not too hard to get the fit right on a piece like this. Anyway, I'm digressing. The suggested yarn is a yarn, I don't know, it's Jarbo Svenskog, which is Swedish wool, 4-ply, and it's like between a worsted and an Aran weight. So if you look on their website, it will say that the gauge for this one is 19 stitches. But the gauge for this pattern is 14, and I'm not sure that moss stitch will make it that much bigger, or is it maybe because the needle size is quite a bit higher than what is suggested for this yarn? I'm not 100% sure. Anyway, I thought what would work quite well is a slightly rustic yarn for this, so definitely wool that is not superwash. It does not have to be merino, so imagine like a Sunless Garn Cardigans, or a cheaper option would be Hobie Friends wool, maybe Adam mohair if you want it to be a little bit more fluffy. I kind of like the simple rustic look as well. So size-wise, it has 8 different sizes. It's got quite a good size range. In fact, it's got it will fit between 92 and 164 centimeters. So that's a finished garment circumference, and it's supposed to have between 8 and 16 centimeters of positive ease. It comes in lots of languages: English, Dutch, Swedish, Danish, Finnish, Norwegian, and German. It's knitted bottom up, flat, for all of it, and then you just join at the shoulders, and then the neck and the armholes are finished with ribbing. So you've got so once you have joined at the shoulders, then you can pick up for the entire button band, knit all of that, and then the armholes. I'm just assuming you knit those in the round, but I'm not 100% sure. And that is that for vests. So let's move on to cardigan before I run out of battery. It's going to be interesting. The first one on the list is the Flower Child cardigan by Wool and Pine. And I'm not normally someone that goes for crew neck cardigans because I've already got a lot of them, and I tend to prefer V-necks. But this one is absolutely gorgeous, and it's one of those cardigans that is perfect for autumn. It's not too thick, it's not too thin, it's got this beautiful motif on it. I mean, the color that they chose to knit the sample in is to die for. I want to knit something in this color as well. And it's got lots of really nice details, not just a beautiful lace pattern, but look at those tiny little buttons. There's lots of little buttons and they look really, really great. I think it's, I mean, buttoned up, but also unbuttoned. It looks amazing. And it has the loveliest little picot collar neck. It's just, I really like this one. I like it a lot. It was published in August 2025. It already has 28 projects on Ravelry. It would cost you $9.54. It's knitted up on 3.75mm needles. That is a US 5. It has a gauge of 20 stitches in stockinette. That's not bad. We like that. And the yarn they used, I'm not 100% sure, but I think it's a hand-dyed yarn. It's made by Hayley Bailey Classic DK, but any DK weight will work for this. I would definitely say to go for a hand-dyed yarn for this, or not lots of speckles, of course, because you don't want to distract from the lace, but something that will feel a little bit natural will look really, really nice. So yeah, I don't have any specific yarns that I would use for this. I'm sorry. It has a good size range as well. It has 11 different sizes. So finished garment bust circumference ranging between 81.5 centimeters and 178 centimeters. And it's supposed to be worn with 5 to 15 centimeters of ease, depending on what you prefer. It comes in English, and the construction is a top-down circular It is a top-down circular yoke construction. And then, of course, you put the sleeves on hold and then you continue them later. So you pick up stitches on each side for the bottom band, and you pick up and knit the stitches for the picot edge on the collar as well. So that's the two finishing things you have to do, and that's it. The lovely thing with Wool & Pine is that they always have a Discord community where you can share your progress, ask questions, check if the yarn you think of using is going to work. So that is lovely helping community that is there for you if you decide to knit this pattern. Moving to the next cardigan. This is the Theresia Cardigan by Gregoria Fibers. It's not a super, in fact, the last three patterns of this roundup are not very new patterns, but patterns that I think are absolutely gorgeous and do need to be talked about. I mean, look at this one. It's super simple, but it just has enough details that it's really elegant. And I've had this in my list, I think pretty much since it came out. It was released in May 2025, and it's been in my favorites ever since. I think it looks really gorgeous. It only has 20 projects on Ravelry, and it would cost you €8.01. It is knitted up on 3.5mm needles. That is a US 4, and the gauge is 24 stitches in stockinette stitch. The yarn used in the sample is onling number 2 and number 10. So number 2 is a sport weight merino, and number 10 is the silk lace. What am I saying? The silk mohair of onling. And I mean, anything would work for this, but it looks so nice, this one, that I would kind of want to knit this in cashmere. It would be an expensive one, but it looks so elegant and refined that it would deserve cashmere, I think. Or a merino and cashmere blend with quite a bit. And the camera is freezing up again. Great. But yeah, merino cashmere blend would work quite well. Or maybe, but I'm not 100% sure about that, is that La Mana yarn that has a lot of cashmere and just a little bit of silk. I think that would work quite well. Or the La Mana Como cashmere, which I think is the right gauge for this as well, and that's 70% wool and 30% cashmere, which is enough to give it that softness that you really want. It comes in 8 sizes, so finished garment bust circumference ranging between 91.5 to 142.5 centimeters, and it's supposed to have between 6.5 and 11.5 centimeters of positive ease. Arguably not the biggest size range, but I think acceptable. It comes in several languages. It comes in English, in Danish, in French, in Korean, and in Norwegian. And the construction is top down. You shape the back with increases first, then you do the fronts, and then you pick up for the sleeves and you shape them with a contiguous shaping method. And it gives it a beautiful shape for in the end. I will knit this at some point. It's gorgeous. Okay, and then second to last is a pattern that I think it's the oldest pattern in this list. Oh no, it's not. The one after this is even older. It's not that old really. It's from January 2018. This is the Geiger cardigan. It was designed by Nora Gogan for Brooklyn Tweed. And I mean, look at the cable motifs on there, and it's absolutely gorgeous just by itself, the motifs, but the way they are placed is really thoughtful and really lovely. And I mean, I could use lots of superlatives for this, but it reminds me a little bit of military jackets, and I've got a bit of a soft spot for like the ornate military jackets. I mean, the inspiration for this pattern was Tyrolean jackets, but it reminds me quite a bit of British military uniforms from more 18th century, 18th to 19th maybe. And the back sort of reminds me of those. The long front parts of the jacket would be folded back and attached with buttons at the back of the jackets. I think it was Marine uniforms that had that, the red coats. Not 100% sure that's just the Marines or not. No, it's not. It's not, because that was blue. Red coats is not Marines. Anyway, to me, this really screams military inspiration, but like ornate dress military jacket. Yeah, and one more detail that is absolutely amazing is the picot button band. I don't know. I have a thing for picot anything lately. But let's get into the details before I keep on talking about this way too long. It has quite a lot of projects on Ravelry. It has 328. It would cost you $14.17. It is knitted on 3.75 millimeter needles. That is a US 5. And the gauge is 23 stitches in stockinette. So not too bad. I mean, this is for Brooklyn Tweed, so of course the suggested yarn is Brooklyn Tweed Arbor. And yeah, I would knit this in a not something too soft. I don't think that would work. So not in a merino, but something a bit like a Sun Has Gone Peer Gynt, something like that. Or maybe I would go for the Brooklyn Tweed Arbor, because they have some beautiful colors and it does look beautiful in this garment. My only problem is with tariffs now, and ordering something then from the US. I would not be too happy about that when there's so much choice in Europe. So I would have to do a bit more research on what to use for this. Possibly even something that is hand dyed, but with very small color differences. That could look nice too. I don't know. Anyway, lots of different options that other people have probably thought of in all those projects. So I think that would be the first thing I would do is look through those projects, what other people have used outside of the recommended yarn. It only comes in 6 sizes, unfortunately. So it would fit people with a chest circumference between 85 centimeters and 134.5 centimeters. So this is not the finished garment circumference. This is your chest size, to be clear. And it doesn't say how much positive ease it is supposed to be worn at, but it looks like it might be like about 10, but not much more. It comes in English, in French, in German, in Russian, and in Japanese. And it's all the different pieces are knit flat and then sewn together. And then the stitches for the collar are picked up and knitted in one piece, because of course you have to go the entire round. So yeah, if you're not into sewing pieces together, that would be something for the sleeves. I think I would try and knit them in the round if possible, so that I would only have to knit the shoulders back in it. The thing that has to be said for sewn knitted pieces is that they have more structural strength. And with lots of cables like this, it's going to be quite a heavy piece, so maybe it's not such a bad idea to do this. So yeah, definitely still on the list, even though it is sewn. There's something to know about this one is that if you order through the Brooklyn Tweed website, you're supposed to get, I think it's a $1 discount instead of buying it through Ravelry. And they have lots of video tutorials. And this pattern, that's also good to know, it's all charted. It's not, the instructions are not like written out for every row what you're supposed to do. So if that is the style that you prefer to use, then that's maybe not great. Then last but not least, and this is another Brooklyn Tweed pattern, so I should have maybe spread them out a little bit more, but here we go. This is Galloway cardigan, and I mean, look at that color work. I've never done, okay, no, I have done some tryouts of color work. I will show you at some point, but it wasn't very special. It was for a hat. The hat turned out way too big. It's lying downstairs. If you have a head that is double the size of other people's head, let me know, because then I've got a hat for you, and I will send it to you, I promise. But anyway, this color work is absolutely brilliant. I love that it has quite intricate color work at the top, but also on the sleeves, also on the hem, well, just before the hem. And then all those little dots. The only thing is the name of those dots is really awful for knitting, because they're either called lice or fleas. I mean, who came up with that? And why did no one go, these are quite bad, let's come up with a better name for it? Because you don't want to say, oh, I'm on the second lice of the row or whatever. You know, I get itchy just thinking about this. I hope I did not make you itchy by talking about this. I'm sorry if I did. Anyway, this pattern was released in September 2017. It has 146 projects on Ravelry. It would cost you $15.81. It's knitted up for the color work on 4.5mm needles. That's a US 7, or for the lice part, it's 5mm, aka US 8. The gauge is 20 stitches in stockinette, so that's a nice yarn weight. It uses Brooklyn Tweed shelter, but you could use anything of knitting for olive heavy merino, or the Rune Natura Gilet would, I think, look quite nice in this as well, or Samnesgar Peer Gynt. I mean, all of these yarns that are at this weight, as long as it's not a superwash, because it's color work. So there you go. Only comes in 6 sizes, once again, for chest circumference, so not finished garment circumference, but your chest size, between 84 centimeters and 145 centimeters. It's supposed to have 18 centimeters of positive ease, so if you don't mind a little bit less positive ease, then and you don't quite fit in that size range, then it might still be okay. It comes in English, French, German, Russian, and Japanese, and the construction, there's an upside, there's a downside. This is a cardigan, so most people would be like, I have to knit flat. No, you don't. You knit this one in the round. And that's how we get to the downside. You have to steek in order to make it a cardigan. But I mean, I don't quite know how they do it, because the two sides are either you have to make them overlap and then tie them together. I'm not sure that is in the pattern, so you have to think of some way to tie them together, or you just always let it hang like that. There's a fly that got in here. How is there a fly? September. Anyway, almost there. But yeah, I don't know how that is done. with increases, or you must start with a lot of increases of stitches. And so yeah, I don't know how that is done exactly, if you have to separate them quite early, because the first part is straight and then the v-neck starts, or if somehow that you decrease and then you will stick in between those decreases. I don't know how that is done, but there's a lot of knitting around, and that is nice, I guess. I think it's knitted bottom up though, but I mean, yeah. I did say there were upsides and downsides to this one. And once again, this is Brooklyn Tweed, so if you order through their website, you get a $1 discount, and they have lots of video tutorials and explanations, etc. And if you have questions, you can always contact them. Before we finish, honourable mentions for cardigans for fall. I mean, I'm wearing one of them. This is the Champagne Cardigan by Petite Knit. I finished it about a month ago, I think. I'm not 100% sure. I've been wearing it quite a lot ever since I wove in my ends and blocked it the first time, and since the heat wave is gone, that helps as well to be able to wear it. And I really love it. I talked in my previous episode, so last week's Knit and Chat, about what I would change. So after wearing it, I've got a few more things that I would change about it. So check that one out if you consider knitting this one. And then I have to mention my other work in progress, which is the Agnete cardigan, which is a brioche stitch cardigan that is going to look absolutely amazing. But as I said, brioche stitch, so it's very slow. And I've not been very motivated to knit on it in the last 2 to 3 months, I think. But it's amazing. So those are definitely two pieces that I would recommend for autumn as well. But that brings us to the end of this pattern roundup. I hope you discovered some new patterns that you had never seen, and that you're inspired to cast on something else, if that is what you did want to, or that you've added more patterns to your endless lists on Ravelry if you're just like me. But yeah, it was nice to spend some time with you, and I will be back next week with just a normal podcast episode about how things are going. I've got 2 whips now. It's quite early in the week, so I hope that by next week I will have finished one of them. But yeah, you'll see if you tune in. So if you want to stay up to date, don't forget to subscribe. That way you will automatically see my video next week. And if you've enjoyed today's video, then maybe give it a like. That way I know that you did enjoy it. And if you've got something to add to all these patterns or suggested yarns, etc., please leave a comment down below. We can all learn from each other. This is about sharing and, having great ideas together. Also, if you comment what you're currently knitting on, that is always a good way to discover new patterns. So yeah, that would be lovely if you did that. Have a great weekend if you're seeing this on Friday, and otherwise a great week if you're seeing this later. Enjoy your knitting, and see you soon. Bye bye.